Hello and welcome to From the Rookery End. We've got a bit extra for you today. You know that we've been had opportunity to do these fans press conferences. I don't like the word. We've spoken to Renee and Megan from the women's team and also Tom Delibashiru. And this week, a huge bunch of fans got the chance to speak to Scott Duxbury. Now, it was Friday morning when it happened. We've decided to get this out to you as soon as possible because, well, we felt it very important that you got to hear what Scott had to say, and you can reflect on it with your friends tomorrow at the game, discuss it, and even get in touch and see how you feel afterwards. So this is the interview, the chat, the press conference that we did. You'll hear from all the people who were there and contributing, and we thank them all for their permission to put them into this podcast. Lots and lots of topics were covered, but the first question was all about Tom Cleverley. And with the memory of Rob Edwards very clearly in Watford fans' head, did the hierarchy at the club have full confidence? And are they going to be giving Tom their backing?
Yeah, completely. But, I'm painfully aware words are irrelevant. But, he has my complete support. And it's my job to navigate the board and make sure that their support remains constant. The beauty about Tom is he's been at the club a long time. He knows the politics here. He knows how to navigate certain issues. So I'm supremely confident that together we can have a long, successful future. So he has the full support of the board. It's a results-driven industry, but equally, the work that Tom's doing is recognised, and it's my job to make sure the board continues to recognise that, and that we can grow something. Because there's going to be bumps, there's going to be problems, and we're going to make sure we navigate them and we continue to grow. But where there aren't any bumps, where there aren't any problems, is at the training ground. His training, everything he does, the philosophy he's trying to implement, it's clear for everybody to see, and it's my job to make sure the board will always see that. So I remain supremely confident. I hope lots of people learn from the mistakes of the past, and that we build something, because it absolutely helps. We started well. It builds that confidence. It builds that trust. But we're not blind. There are going to be bumps along the road, and we've got to navigate them.
The next question was regarding the appointment of coaches to support Tom. Javier Pereira was appointed, and the question was asked, was it Tom's choice, or did it come from the hierarchy, having worked with him before?
Again, everything about Tom is collaborative, so there isn't a decision whether it's player or staff that Tom hasn't endorsed. And at the very beginning, again, going back to your first question, in order to protect Tom in a sense with the board and allow him to grow, he accepted he needed a senior member of staff as counsel more than anything, to allow a young coach to make mistakes and grow and learn. In the first 9 games, that was Jimmy. But then Jimmy moved back to the academy, and we felt that an appointment was needed. And we actually approached Javi with Tom's agreement early on, and he wasn't available. And it was only just the fact that he became available that we appointed. Yeah, it would have been far better he was there pre-season, but when he became available, Tom was in full agreement, and it's just another good addition to his team. He's got a great team around him, but what perhaps was missing was just a bit of seniority, a bit of experience that he can call upon and utilise. So again, it goes back to that board confidence as well. I'm presenting, as is Tom. We have a very good coaching team now. We've got youth, we've got experience, and I think as a collective, it's something we can grow upon.
I want to touch a couple of things you said at the fans forum we had last summer. You said that by this time next year, the club would be debt-free. I fancied knowing how that went.
We are now, I need to speak to me after the final bit, but I think we've now extinguished our future transfer obligations. Maybe we're a couple of million still outstanding. I don't think so with the sale of Yasser. That is effectively now we are debt free, save for the holdco debt, which I've explained a million times. There will be obviously another Twitter outrage when the accounts are published, and they'll see what appears to be debt, because we will factor the Yasser deal and the Coney deal. But again, that's in my view, that's not true debt, because it's just a mechanism to ensure we have all of the funds up front, and the obligation then to pay the bank that provides those funds is the club that we've sold the player to. But in the true sense of the word, yeah, we are now debt free, and we're a self-sufficient, sustainable football club. It very much reminds me of how we were when we first came. And I was speaking to Tom about this morning, that we're not going to spend millions on transfer fees, but we've got to use our point of difference and be proud of it, which I think has got a little lost perhaps in the last few years. We are multi-club and we use that to our advantage. Lots of other clubs have got multi-club now. We do have a great scouting network, and we can bring in players that people perhaps haven't heard of, and that will give us the best possible chance to beat the establishment and get promoted again by going back to what we were at the very beginning. And quite frankly, when we've lost our way a little bit and lost our identity and signed players who I won't name but spent millions on, 40 million if you take the salary and the transfer fee, it hasn't worked out. So we're back to our lean best now, doing what we did at the beginning, using our scouting network, using limited resources to find good young players to make us competitive. What I will add, Tom's added another layer in the sense that with his reputation, he's been able to bring in some really good loan players. So Jefferson is all credit to Tom. He had many suitors in the Championship. Tom did a brilliant presentation to the player and to Bournemouth, and he chose us solely because of Tom and his proposition and what he wants to achieve this year. So I think Tom's added another dimension to what was already a very good recruitment process.
I love the phrase "lean best," but why was it you chose to seek, small investors through, giving this 5% of the club up to fans, but also other people, rather than going for one individual, even them taking a larger percentage? Why was that approach taken?
Because you've got to do what you control. I mean, it's no secret we've been open to investment, whether it's for growing the stadium, infrastructure, investing in the training ground, investing in the playing squad. And quite frankly, it just hasn't arisen. When Republic approached us and said, this is a unique proposition in football, but quite established in the tech arena, do you want to consider it? i.e. selling 10, 20% of the club, albeit through Class B digitised equity, we explored it because we can control it. We can deliver that. And if it delivers it, it provides more financial might for the strategic growth of the club. Nothing prevents an individual approaching us and saying, we want to invest, we want to take Watford to the next level, but that just hasn't materialised. So we're not just going to sit here and wait and hope that it materialises. It's just being proactive and doing something to try and achieve that. And if it works, then it's a really innovative way of raising finance.
Coming back to the share issue thing that you spoke about with John there, why do you think that the uptake on that fell below the target, and also the attempts to get outside investment outside of that share issue?
It hasn't actually fallen a bit behind the target. I mean, it was never supposed to be a retail offering or a supporter offering. Clearly, as it's an open offering, we didn't want to be in a position where we were excluding supporters, or they felt, well, why are you being unreasonable and not allowing? And if there is, if pardon the pun, a supporter wants a token share, fantastic. But it's very much aimed at the institutional offices, the family offices, and those conversations are getting close to fruition. And if they do close, and we're being told they should do in the coming weeks, then the target will be reached. And what it's done as an absolute certainty, it's got Watford and their proposition out into the real financial markets in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, and in the States. So there's some really good high-level conversations going on that within the framework of the token scheme should realise some investment. And those conversations, that they just weren't happening before. The public-facing ticker on the Republic side, it isn't really the aim of this. Everyone's welcome and it's fantastic, but it's very much the institutional investment that we're looking for that will unlock that investment to help the club grow.
What are the most notable things that you've learned in your role from the last 5 years?
We've got to build something from the coaching side. It's great being different, using the multi-club players and moving them around, and being quite ruthless, to be honest, with player decisions, because we need the technical best for a campaign. We do need to invest in time and patience with a coach and a coaching team, going back to Javi being added to Tom's coaching setup. And we've got to be patient. And, I've got to manage upwards to ensure that patience is achieved, because you saw it with the last 9 games with Tom. You've seen it with the opening, and it's by no means the finished product at all. Tom has a clear idea how we're going to play. That's the biggest thing that I've learned that I'm missing. When results aren't going well, it's really bleak, and everything is bad with the football club. Everything, and that's just not true. We've done a lot of good things, and the club has a lot of great assets, the supporters, the community, how the players interact with the community. But what we haven't done well is build an identity with our coaching and with our coach. I just hope that we're able to do that with Tom. And as I say, I think the fact he's been here, he knows the politics, he knows how to operate, and everything about him. He reminds me of the very first coach I ever worked with was Alex Ferguson, and he reminds me so much of him because when Wes left,
and that's Wesley Hood.
And I think Tom expected Wes to stay. We all did. But Wes left. There was no panic. It was just, right, who are we getting to bring in? Who are we going to get to replace? And he asked the same question that Alex says. I don't care who's going. The only important question is who's coming in. And that's how Tom is. There's no drama. He can deal with every situation, and he always sees the positive. So Wes going, the positive is, right, let's get the centre-back with the attributes that I want, and let's move on. So that's the biggest thing I've learned, and I need to implement. We've got to build something there.
You spoke about, obviously, the multi-club model that we've got here, obviously the link with Udinese. For those that might not know, in terms of how the link actually works between Watford and Udinese, for example, obviously we brought in Tikvic this summer.
Yeah.
We reach out to Udinese to see if they've got a player that suits the profiles, or do they contact us and say, we've got such and such available, do you want him?
It's exactly like we reached. It's like year one where we said, right, we need a team. And so we had Vidra, Igalo, everyone coming. And it's exactly that. Tom's a little more strategic. We need this, we need that. And if they have it and we can get it, then it's obviously the most efficient, streamlined way to deal with it. Equally, if we have players that don't want to be here, but we believe still have an asset, they can go to Udinese and we can realise and keep them in the group and maybe get them back at some point. So it tends to be more in the Championship that we're getting players from Udinese than us helping Udinese. But the biggest thing is the scouting network. Most of the scouts are based there, and there's certain players that they will identify that are perfect for us, and they have an ambition to play in England, and we can utilise that. So Varta, for instance, was identified through the scouting network, going to be a really good talent for us, and we were able to move quickly. Gianluca did excellent there, convincing the boy to come to us, and we signed him. It's just utilising resources really effectively. But yeah, it's certainly in the Championship, they will have players that can be of use to us that we try and get. But it's always then down to the player and the agent whether we can then convince them. Udinese don't control in totality, but it certainly makes it an easier conversation.
What are the expectations you've set for Tom this season?
The expectation for everybody is to be the best we can, and the best we can is to try and get promoted. But quite frankly, we set the ball lower with Tom. We just want to get the good feeling back. I think Saturday was the first time I've been at the Vic where I actually enjoyed a Championship game. I enjoyed what I was watching, and it was great. And the second half, the way we kept going and attacking, it was a joy to watch. And I think that's the first thing. Just let's create a style of play where we can turn up confident, we're going to be entertained, we're going to enjoy it, and confident if everything goes well and we play that way, we've got a real fighting chance of winning. And where that takes us, let's see. But I remember the first year we got promoted, we turned up and it wasn't, will we play well? You knew we were going to play well. It might not get us the win, but you knew how we were going to play, you knew we were going to attack, you knew we were going to, and that's the first step. Let's turn up confidently every week, knowing how we're going to play, give that committed performance, which more often than not will get us the points. Early days, but again, Saturday was just that. It's been years of turmoil and depression at the Vic. I mean, I'm not blind to it. I'm a supporter as well. It's to turn that around last week was great. And again, I have no idea what's going to happen on Saturday, but I know I turn up with confidence. That's the starting point.
Watford have raised significant funds through player sales in recent years. Can you just clarify how the funds of these player sales have been allocated and what fans can expect in terms of future investment in the team?
I mean, our accounts are there for everyone to see. So the player sales have funded pre-existing debt and future transfer fees, i.e. Transfer fees for players that we paid for, Sarr, Pedro, etc., etc. So they're now extinguished. So one, we're now financially stable. Two, any future player sales can be reinvested into the playing squad should we choose, rather than achieving financial stability. So that's what the player sales have done. And as a Championship club, we should actually be proud. There aren't many Championship clubs that every season, every transfer window are able to generate 20, 30 million of revenue. And that's why we're now financially stable. And that's why we're in a sustainable position. Many championship clubs are losing 20 million a year. We're not. And once the new Premier League deal comes in, which is really crucial for Watford and other championship clubs, we're then in a really strong position where we can stay in the championship for as long as we need to, and it just becomes a matter of when, not if, we're promoted. If you're constantly gambling your future, and this is the year, and if we don't do it, we've got to raise 30 million of player sales, it becomes too much pressure. Unfortunately, now we've navigated that pathway, and with the player sales we've done, the debt is gone, and we are able to stay in the EFL for as long as it needs. I hope not to stay around too long, but we're now able to be sustainable. And it's not at the detriment of extinguishing our squad. I mean, if you go through the squad, there is still future value there with Chavadazzi, with Barta, with Bar, with Dele Bashiru, Kayembe. There's lots of exciting players. And if they are sold at some point, it's because we want to sell them, and those funds can be reinvested in the squad should we choose. I still think we should be very keen with our recruitment, and we shouldn't just go for the established name, and we should be use our core competence. But it will free up funds to maybe buy the younger player that is a little more expensive than we can currently afford. It's put us in a really strong, sustainable position where we're not looking over our shoulder about debt anymore. The future now with player sales is that they can, if we choose, be reinvested into the squad.
The Premier League deal you're talking about, is that about the distribution of Premier League money through the pyramid? How's that going?
Well, they're not. I mean, there was a proposed deal put forward, which the Championship clubs informally approved, and then the Premier League revoked it because they're having their own internal discussions about their own cost control before they rubber stamp at any deal. I mean, the fear for the Premier League club was always the football regulator. Would they just get involved and impose, from the Premier League's perspective, a worse deal, from the EFL's perspective, a better deal? The general election put the football regulator on hold, but now that's back on the agenda, and that will always be the stopgap. I think if the Premier League don't come with a sensible proposal, because it's in everyone's interest that the football pyramid is protected. I mean, I think what makes the Premier League exciting isn't just the title going to Manchester City every year; it's the relegation battle. And to have an active relegation battle, you need a sustainable, competitive championship. So I don't think it's just a matter of the Championship asking the Premier League for money. It's the Premier League understanding that a major part of its appeal is its interaction with the Championship, both relegation and promotion from the Championship. And so once that's understood and the Premier League understand that there is a necessity for the Championship to have sustainable clubs, not going out of business because they're losing 20 million a year, then I think the deal will be done. And as I say, it will make a massive difference to all Championship clubs who can start to be a sustainable entity, not just gambling on promotion.
Since your start of your tenure here at Watford, there have been over 60 player transfers between Watford and Udinese, and some fans have felt that Watford's interest might be secondary to Udinese. So how would you feel to balance the need of both clubs, and what assurances can you give that Watford's ambitions won't be compromised?
I mean, they just aren't. I'm sure it's human nature. I'm sure Udinese feel that they're compromised to the benefit of Watford. But every deal we have done with Udinese, both in and out, has always been for the benefit of Watford. I mean, I'm often jokingly criticised by Gino that I only care about Watford, but that's my job. My job is to only care about Watford. I can assure you that the board, myself, every single deal we have done has been for the benefit of Watford, and in the Championship especially, we only gain from the relationship because we get players, we get support. So no, we've been here 12 years, so there's got to be a number of transactions, there's got to be movement, but it's always and every player that's come in is because the coach has wanted him, and everybody that's gone out is because the player has wanted to go, and there's nothing we could do to stop that. So there can be many complaints over the last 12 years, but the relationship with Udinese, I promise you, can't be one of them, because it's only been to the benefit of the football club of Watford.
Scott, as I'm sure you're aware, your salary is publicly available to view via Companies House, and you do earn a significant figure. In the last set of Watford accounts, you were paid £948,000. So for context, for everyone watching, Brentford's chairman, who have been stable in the Premier League for quite a while, was paid £800,000 in their last set of accounts. So my question for you, and I want you to answer this honestly, is how can you justify your salary being so high, given Watford's current status within the EFL over the past few seasons?
I don't think it's a case of me justifying my salary. I mean, there are many CEOs that earn more than me, and there are many CEOs that earn less than me. But I think what the question is, my commitment to this football club, and we've been asking players to renew contracts and take reductions in order to show that they're committed to the project. They could earn more elsewhere. And equally, I could earn more elsewhere. There are offers where I can earn more than I currently earn. But I love the club. I think the project isn't completed. I know people don't like the word project, but that's what it is. You know, we need to continue growing the infrastructure of the club. We need to be the best we can be, which will necessitate we get promoted. So I'm not interested in moving to another club, and I want to stay here and be part of that. So I've reduced my salary by 50% so I can be part of the sustainable future and continue to deliver success to the football club. So I did that voluntarily, and I did that a few months ago.
So that'll appear in the next set of accounts that are published in the next financial year. Is that correct?
I don't know how it works. It will be the year after, because I've done it in this financial year. So the next set of accounts are for the last financial year. But I don't know whether there's another way to be transparent. But
you've been fully transparent.
A permanent pay cut whilst we're in the EFL, yes.
Gianluca Nani's role across the two clubs, how does that work on a kind of practical day-to-day level? And is that a permanent arrangement or a long-term arrangement, as much as anything can be permanent or long-term in football?
We'll have to see how it works. I mean, it was more just a practicality. So, for instance, going back to last summer, when Everton was signing the Udinese striker, what's his name? It escapes me. But they approached me because they didn't know how to contact Italy. And I did the deal with Bill, who tragically passed away last year. And we've just found this summer as well, when we were in the transfer market, people were asking us about Udinese players. When we were looking for players, they were saying no to us, yes to Udinese, or Udinese, they were saying no to Udinese and yes to us. So we just thought it was simpler to streamline those conversations, have one individual who was coordinating it. The actual scouting and recruitment still remains within the scouting network. So certain players will be perfect for Serie A, certain players will be perfect for Watford. So the actual identification doesn't really change. It's more the negotiations and discussions. It's just more efficient to have one man dealing with both clubs. It seems to be working well at the moment, and obviously, like anything, you just keep a watching brief on it and see if the role needs to be separated or it can stay the same. But at the moment, it seems super efficient and seems to be working. There
was a new registration of a charge at Companies House yesterday. I appreciate your position, and you kind of explained the external debt factor in all of this. But what does that mean in layman's terms for the football club? I presume it's more related to Gino's loans to the club.
I don't know which charge it is. That may be the Kone charge that we've discounted, because we've discounted Kone, and so we get the money up front, and then over the years, when those transfer instalments are due, the buying club will then pay them back to the bank. So that's what that will be. And the bank will. It's difficult. I don't quite know the details, but every discounting we do, the bank then puts a charge. But as I say, it becomes the buying club's obligation to extinguish that debt, because we've been paid the money up front.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I may, it isn't in relation to Kone. Okay. What it is a debenture between Hornets Investment Limited and Hornets Management SAL.
That will be the whole code debt then, won't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. But what it seems to do, it positions the upper company, Management SAL, effectively ahead of unsecured creditors in the event of any step to appoint a liquidator, provisional liquidator, administrator, or receiver. Last year at the Q&A with Gino, he confirmed his commitment not to call in that debt. Can you just confirm that is still his position on that?
Absolutely. And you don't need to take my word for it. Why would he? Because it would make no financial sense, because we simply wouldn't have the ability to satisfy that. And then the club goes into administration, and the chances of him getting that money back, it'll be a penny in the pound. So it's just every single football club owner funds their club through loans. Tony Bloom's has had a big portion of it paid back, but that's just the reality of how owners work. And the fact it was unsecured and they've secured it, it really is just a technicality. But I absolutely confirm there is absolutely no possibility of Gino calling that debt back.
From the Rookery End, a podcast about life following Watford FC.
Firstly, a massive thank you to Scott for taking time out of his day to speak to us. We know as fans that hasn't been something he's done recently. And hey, this hopefully is the first thing that he does, and more of you will get to speak to him. So I also want to say thank you to Tom from Golden Pages, Mike and Ben from Voice of the Vic, Tom from Watford Buzz, James from the Watford Way, and Callum from the Hornets House for allowing us to use their questions. And of course, you also heard from Pete from Didn't Scratch Your Eyes. The pressers isn't the best forum to talk to somebody, but that was actually very, very useful. Got some lovely little nuggets there from Scott. And the boys, I'm not doing the podcast this weekend, but the boys, I'm sure, will discuss it. And Mike's on his way to holiday. I'm sure he'll send us a WhatsApp message to see how he feels about it. But after the podcast that we did about the State of the Union, and wanting these things to change, it does feel, from what Scott says, that this is going in the right direction. Some wonderful questions from everybody, and the fears of not necessarily getting much from it were wrong. Everybody clearly knows what the fans and what you might be feeling. Not the exact questions that everyone would ask, but a really healthy thing to do. So do get in touch. Anything longer, do give us an email, podcast@fromtherookeryend.com, or do get in touch with us via our social media @Watford Podcast. And we'll think about it today, Friday, and Saturday at the game, and we'll talk about it in the post-match podcast after Watford take on Derby County at home tomorrow. So thank you very much. Do keep in touch, and as we always say, come on, you ORNS!